Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. So we have been discussing about time and tense in the last few classes, and today we move on to a new section, that is sequence of tenses. So what do you mean by sequence of tenses? So we have been studying about principal clause and subordinate clause and so on. So how do we join these principal clause and subordinate clause, and what is the relation with the principal clause and subordinate clause, and how to write principal clause, subordinate clause and so on. So we will learn about all those. There are some rules and regulations which we have to keep in mind when we speak about the sequence of tenses. Or else we can say sequence of tense is the principle according to which the tense of the verb in a subordinate clause follows the tense of the verb in the principal clause. So there are two main rules governing the sequence of tenses, and we will study about all those. And today we will be learning about the first rule which governs the sequence of tenses. So the first rule is all about the past tense in the principal clause must be followed by a tense of the past time in the subordinate clause. In the sense, if we are saying something in a past tense, or the principal clause is in the past tense, what we have to do? We have to use the subordinate clause also in the past tense. For example, he was telling us that he knew the secret of her friend. So here, both the tenses, that is principal clause and the subordinate clause, is in the past tense. So that is the first rule which we have to keep in mind. That is, past tense in the principal clause must be followed by a past tense or the past time in the subordinate clause. Alright, as I can give one more example, that she told me that it had been raining for 2 hours. So here the first principal clause is in the past tense, that is she told me, whereas the subordinate clause is also in the past tense, that is it had been raining for 2 hours. So that is also in the past tense. And I can give one more example. She knew that he would go to Kolkata. She would go to Kolkata. So the first principal clause is in the past tense, and the subordinate clause is also in the past tense. So the first rule is, I think it is clear to you. It is supposed to be subordinate principal clause has to be in the past tense, and the subordinate clause also has to be in the past tense. So this is the main rule, or the first rule with regard to sequence of tenses. We know that in every rules like this there will be some exceptions. So in this rule also there are few exceptions. So there are, however, the following exceptions to this rule is also considered. So we will also know about what are these rules and regulations and the exceptions which this rules holds. So this is all about that. So shall we move on to it? So the first one is all about a past tense in the principal clause may be followed by a present tense in the subordinate clause when the subordinate clause expresses some habitual or a universal fact. So what is it? I'll explain with an example. Our teacher said that the earth revolves around the sun. So in this situation, when we are speaking about a universal fact or a habitual action, we will use a present tense in the subordinate clause. But in a principal clause, it will be past tense. But in a subordinate clause, it will be present tense. So that is why it is said, our teacher said that the earth revolves around the sun. The earth revolves around the sun. So here the past tense in the principal clause may be followed by a present tense in the subordinate clause. And there is one more thing which we have to remember. It has to be speaking about a habitual action or a universal fact. I can give a few examples like he learned from his experience that pride has a fall. Pride has a fall. Here the first subordinate principal clause, that is he learned from his experience. It is a principal clause and it is in past tense. The second subordinate clause is the pride has a fall. So it is in a present tense. So you might understand the difference between these two. And the fourth example, the third example which I am going to say is the saint said that all men are mortal. So here the saint said, it is in a past tense, and the all men are mortal is in a present tense, because it is a universal fact. So it is said like that. In the sense, a past tense in the principal clause may be followed by a present tense in the subordinate clause if it is speaking about a habitual or a universal fact. So this is the first rule which we have to keep in mind when we speak about the sequence of tenses. The second one is all about when the subordinate clause is introduced by some conjunctions of comparison. For example, then any tense can be followed by any tense. So there, rule 1 or the first rule does not apply at all, because here the word than is used. So we know that it's a conjunction of comparison, that is than. So if it is used in a sentence, any tense can be used at any place. So for example, we can use examples are given here. He respected you better than he respects me. He respects you better than he respected me. So here in the first one, it is past tense in the principal clause, and it is the present tense in the subordinate clause. In the second example, he respects you better than he respected me. Here it is a present tense, and in the subordinate clause it becomes a past tense. So even if there is a past tense in the principal clause, it may be followed by any tense required by the sense in the subordinate clause when the subordinate clause is introduced by than. So if there is a word called than in the sentence, what will happen? Any tense can be followed by any tense. So this is the second exception to this rule. So we have been speaking about the second one, and I will say some examples. So the two examples which I gave is already given to you, and the second one, he respected you better than he respected me. So here in the subordinate clause and the principal clause, it becomes a past tense. And the next example, he has respected you better than he respected me. So here also, what happened? It becomes to past tense. And the third one, he will respect you better than he respected me. So here, what happened? In the first example, in the first subordinate principal clause, it is the future tense, and in the subordinate clause, it becomes a past tense. Or else, he will respect you better than he was respecting me. So here also the same thing. The principal clause is future, and the subordinate clause becomes a past tense. So as I said, when subordinate clause is introduced by some conjunctions of comparison, example then, any tense can be used with any tense. So here any tense can be used in a sentence. So there the first rule does not take place or does not play any role with regard to the sentence. So we move on to the next one. Okay. Though it is the second rule is like this, second exception is like this, we have to keep in mind some other kind of things. That is, if the comparison is expressed by as well as instead of than, the same rule holds good. For example, they understood me as well as they understood him. So I'll go into the examples in detail. And the few other things which you have to know. Any tense may be followed by any tense depending upon the sense intended by the speaker. So here they understood me as well as they understood him. So here the first principal clause is in the past tense and the subordinate clause is also in the past tense. Second example, they understood me as well as they understood him. So here also it becomes the same in both sentences. So here the first example, in the first example it is past tense, and the second one the principal clause becomes the present tense in the principal clause, and in the past tense in the subordinate clause it is the past tense itself. It can also change, like they will understand me as well as they understood him. So here the subordinate principal clause is changing, but there is no change in a subordinate clause. So that is with regard to the use of as well as. Okay, so we move on to the third exception, which is which we have to keep in mind. So I did not write here because I don't have the space to write. So I'll just explain what it is. When the subordinate clause is an adverb clause denoting place, reason, or comparison, it may be in any tense as required by the sense, even if there is a past tense in the principal clause. So if it is speaking about, if it is denoting a place, reason, or a comparison, or if there is an adverb denoting a place, reason, or a comparison, it can take any verb or any tense as required by the sense. That is, I'll explain with some example. A grand city once stood where now lies the village. So here the word grand is used in the sentence, and then in the principal clause it becomes a past tense, and in the subordinate clause it becomes a present tense. Or else she failed because she is weak in Sanskrit. So here also the first principal clause is in the past tense, and the subordinate clause is in the present tense. One more example, like Shyam liked you as much as he likes me. So here the first example, the principal clause is in the past tense and the subordinate clause is in the present tense. So that is with regard to the adverb clause denoting place, reason, comparison, and so on. So it can take any sense as required by the sense, even if there is a past tense in the principal clause. So it does not matter whether it is whether the principal clause is in the past tense or not. But if it is speaking about or denoting a place of reason or a comparison or whatever it is, it can take any tense. So this is all about today's session, and we will see what are the things which we have studied in this section. So first we spoke about the sequence of tenses, and the second one the rule which we have to keep in mind, that is the past tense in the principal clause must be followed by a tense of the past time in the subordinate clause. So I also explained with an example, that is he was telling us that he knew the secret of a friend. So it takes the same tense, and there are some exceptions with regard to this rule. That is, a past tense in the principal clause may be followed by a present tense in the subordinate clause when the subordinate clause expresses some habitual or universal fact. So if it is speaking about the subordinate clause is speaking about a universal fact or a habitual action, what will happen? The subordinate clause can take present tense, but the principal clause will be in the past tense. So that is the first exception to this rule. And the second one, when subordinate clause is introduced by some conjunctions of comparison example, then any tense can be used. So I have given many examples with regard to that. So any tense can be used if there is a word called than in the sentence. And the third one which we are supposed to know is when the subordinate clause is an adverb clause denoting place, reason, comparison or whatever it is, it can take any sense, any tense. So that is all about the 3 exceptions to this rule. So this is all about today's session, and we will come up with the second rule with regard to sequence of tenses in the next class. Thank you.